Hello, I'm Esther Gitu-Ewart. It's Monday, January 24th. This is Africa 54.
Burkina Faso's president, Roch Kabore, is reportedly detained by mutineers. We'll have details.
The Ethiopian army vows to end Tigray's forces.
A community in Nigeria promotes bicycle riding to reduce pollution.
We begin our broadcast with an apparent coup in Burkina Faso. Reports say mutinous soldiers are detaining President Roch Kabore following reports of heavy gunfire at his residence on Sunday night. The event in the country marks the third coup in West Africa in the past 18 months. Reporter Henry Wilkins says outside the national television station, RTB, the military mutineers have clearly taken control of the building, installing an anti-aircraft gun, blockaded the gates to the station with a military vehicle, while helicopters circled overhead. Let's get more details in this report from David Doyle.
Outside the presidential residence in Burkina Faso on Monday morning, several armed vehicles riddled with bullets and stained with blood. 4 security sources and a West African diplomat say President Roch Kabore has been detained by mutinying soldiers. Heavy gunfire had been heard at his home in the capital Ouagadougou on Sunday night. Throughout the day, the sound of bullets had rung out from several military camps, where soldiers were demanding more support for their fight against militants linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State. The government had denied the army had seized power. On Monday morning, government sources could not be reached for comment. 3 armoured vehicles and soldiers wearing balaclavas were stationed outside the headquarters of the state broadcaster. Kabore has faced waves of protests in recent months. Frustration had been mounting over the frequent killing of civilians and soldiers by militants. Protesters came out in support of the mutineers on Sunday and ransacked the headquarters of Kabore's political party. The government declared a curfew from 8 p.m. to 5:30 a.m. and closed schools for 2 days. But as the sun came up on Monday, it wasn't clear who is now in charge.
David Doyle of Reuters filed that report. Meanwhile, a tweet attributed to Burkinabe President Kabore says, quote, "Our nation is going through tough times. We must at this very moment preserve what we have achieved. I call on those who took arms to lay them down for the sake of our nation's higher interest. It is through dialogue and listening that we can solve our contradictions." Residents in Ouagadougou on Monday celebrated the detention of President Roch Kabore. Singing and chanting, many walked, some rode motorbikes to Guillaume Ouedraogo Army Camp. Kabore has been detained at a military camp by mutinying soldiers, according to security sources and a West African diplomat. Kabore's detention comes as soldiers demand more support for their fight against Islamist militants. Kabore has faced waves of street protests in recent months as frustration has mounted over the frequent killing of civilians and soldiers by militants, some of whom have links to Islamic State and Al-Qaeda. Demonstrators came out to support the mutineers on Sunday and ransacked the headquarters of President Kabore's People's Movement for Progress political party. A developing story we're following out of Nigeria is the murder of a 5-year-old girl, Hanifa Abubakar, by her teacher, who has allegedly confessed to poisoning her. Irate youths on Monday reportedly set fire to the private primary school in which the accused teacher, Abdul Malik Muhammad Tanko, was the proprietor. According to the website of VOA affiliate station channelstv.com in Nigeria, Hanifa was abducted late last year, and one of those involved in the operation was Tanko. The Kano state government has ordered the closure of the school, the Noble Kids Academy. Information for this report was also obtained in an exclusive interview by the girl's mother with VOA House reporter Baraka Bashir. Across social media, many people are sympathizing with the family and calling for justice to be served, according to channelstv.com. Turning to South Sudan, a local official says at least 31 ethnic Dinka have been killed in clashes with suspected Mole armed youth in Jonglei State. Bor South County Commissioner Yuot Alier told the Associated Press that more than 20 other people were wounded in Sunday evening's attack in Baidit village. Some houses were also burned. The commissioner says the attackers left with hundreds of cattle. 2 of the attackers were killed. The acting governor of Jonglei, Tuong Majok, is condemning the attack and urged South Sudan's national government to intervene. The reason for the new communal fighting is not immediately known, but cattle rustling often leads to clashes. Residents of the Ghanaian village of Apiate are questioning a police version of events on Monday after most of their village was destroyed Thursday when a truck carrying explosives detonated. Clara Frank has more.
In a village shattered by a truck explosion, Asemene Ken walks through the wreckage where his girlfriend once lived. She was among at least 13 people killed in Ghana on January 20th when explosives being carried to a gold mine detonated. Another 180 were injured and around 500 homes destroyed.
Even I'm feeling sad in my heart, so I'll give thanks to God. Everything. I don't know how even though when I stand here, something can happen to me. So I don't know. I should give thanks to God.
Amid the rubble of Apiate, residents are demanding answers from the government. Pastor Derek Eshun says the government needs to address the incident to the level that the people of Apiate are satisfied and can move on with their lives.
They've lost everything. So the government should really do something as soon as possible and make sure the company in charge of that vehicle will bring to book and make sure the company also pay for whatever damage and cost that they've caused the community.
The truck was owned by Spanish company Maxim, which has not responded to a request for comment. It was transporting 10 tons of explosives to the Chirano gold mine, run by Toronto-based Kinross Gold Corporation. A Kinross spokesman said the vehicle was under the sole supervision of Maxim. Police say the truck was escorted by a Maxim car with a flashing light at the front and a police car behind. But several witnesses say they do not recall seeing the Maxim or police cars. They also question police claims that an officer had helped warn villagers. Ghana's Minister of Information has said police have initiated an inquiry into the sequence of events and facts surrounding the incident. Clara Frank, Washington.
The Ethiopian army may be on the verge of entering Tigray's regional capital, Mekelle, to eliminate rebellious forces, according to a top military official. So far, diplomatic efforts at finding peace have stalled. Olivia Chan reports.
Ethiopia's military is planning to enter Tigray's capital Mekelle and eliminate rebellious forces. That was the message from General Abebo Tadesse late on Friday in an interview with state-affiliated broadcaster Fana.
Mekelle and Tigray are Ethiopian territory. No one will stop us. We will go in and eliminate the enemy. There should not be any confusion about this. The Ethiopian people should not perceive as if the war is over. It is not over.
The Horn of Africa country has been in the grip of conflict for over a year. The federal military and its allies have been battling forces loyal to the Tigray People's Liberation Front, the political party that controls the northern region. Recently, there has been an uneasy stalemate between the two sides, punctuated by sporadic fighting. TPLF forces control most of Tigray, but are surrounded by hostile forces who are allied with the federal military. Abebo said Ethiopia would not be able to enjoy peace until the enemy is eliminated. His comments come despite diplomatic efforts to end the violence. This week, 2 top US diplomats flew to Addis Ababa to push for a ceasefire. They're trying to build on tentative signs of a thaw in relations between the warring parties. The TPLF spokesman could not be reached to respond to the military official's comments. Spokespeople for the Ethiopian government and Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed did not immediately respond to requests for comment.
That report was filed by Olivia Chan of Reuters. Nigeria's Rivers State has some of the most polluted air on the continent from burning fossil fuels and trash. One community is seeking to reduce pollution by promoting bicycle riding with an annual bicycle carnival. Timothy Obiezu reports from Ethiopia, Nigeria.
Cyclists prepare to hit the road in Ethiopia in Nigeria's Niger Delta. In a region known for its polluted air, these residents say they hope others will also choose to pedal their way to a cleaner future. Hundreds of people joined this bicycle carnival to promote bicycle riding over the use of transportation that relies on fossil fuels. Chris Ejim started the initiative 2 years ago.
Like you can see, we are all complaining about suits. Bicycle does not have to do anything with carbon. Just you ride match your bicycle, take it to anywhere, unlike motorcycle or cars. If only we can adopt this, make it a major means of transportation, I think we'll be limited with this suit wahala.
Organizers say the bicycle carnival is the most popular in Nigeria and one of the biggest in West Africa. Bright Johnson says it has encouraged others like him to cycle more often.
Bicycle is in existence in this community now fully. From after the 2020 Bicycle Carnival, people start moving out with their bicycles, start going to market, farm.
Nigeria's River State is ranked as one of the most air-polluted areas of the country, in part because of illegal oil refinery operations that pollute the air. Black soot released from these operations is easy to spot on surfaces, windows, cars, houses, and even plants. This month, the River State government began cracking down on offenders. Local officials say if more people ride bicycles, the demand for illegal fuel will drop.
We encourage people to have bicycle and once in a while use them. Move around with them. Exercise yourself and add more life to your life. But not that we won't embrace the modern transport means now available and revising to bicycle as our own now more acceptable means of movement.
Ejim says Nigeria needs more bicycle lanes. Even without that, he says other villages are considering bicycle festivals to encourage people to use their cars less and their bicycles more. Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Ethiopia, River State, Nigeria.
Would like to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also, check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, the U.S. president warns Russia that any troop movement to Ukraine will be considered an invasion. But first, here's Heidi Adams with what's on tap for Wednesday's Straight Talk Africa.
On the next Straight Talk Africa, we're going to look at the Me Too effect on Africa's women.
Sisterhood! Sisterhood! Hear my voice! Hear my voice!
In recent years, the movement against sexual abuse and harassment has helped bring high-profile figures in Hollywood and global politics to book.
To be a woman is not a crime! To be a woman is not a crime!
But how global and inclusive is the Me Too movement? Is it helping or hurting the fight for women's rights and safety in African countries? We'll also look at the role and space for men in the conversation. So be sure to join me, Heidi Adams, on the next Straight Talk Africa.
The United States began shipments of lethal aid to Ukraine after U.S. President Joe Biden recently said that any Russian troop movement into Ukraine would be considered an invasion. President Biden's comments come as Russian President Vladimir Putin stations more than 100,000 troops along Ukraine's border. Meanwhile, Russian and U.S. diplomats continue to work to lower tensions. VOA's Arasha Basadi has more.
The first shipment of lethal aid from the United States arrived in Ukraine after officials from Washington and Moscow on Friday agreed to keep working to ease tensions over concerns of a Russian invasion in the former Soviet Republic. The U.S. Embassy in Kyiv says the shipment contains more than 90,000 kilograms of aid like weapons and ammunition. This all comes as British intelligence warns of Russian plans to install a pro-Russian president in Ukraine, which Moscow denies.
We've given Russia two paths. There's a path of diplomacy and dialogue, one that I engaged in with Foreign Minister Lavrov just last week in Geneva. But there's also a path of its renewed aggression and massive consequences that we have been building now for many weeks. And it's not just us that's saying it. The G7, the world's leading democratic economies, have been clear about that. The European Union's been clear about that. NATO's been clear about that.
Amid rising tensions with the West, Russia's defense ministry published these images Saturday showing Russian, Iranian, and Chinese warships in joint military drills in the Gulf of Oman with a promise of more to come. Meanwhile, U.S. lawmakers are weighing their options to de-escalate rising tensions.
I do think we should take up and pass a bipartisan bill that will show resolve and determination and apply some sanctions now. But the very strongest sanctions, the sorts of sanctions that we use to bring Iran to the table, is something that we should hold out as a deterrent to prevent Putin from taking the last step of invading Ukraine.
Russian fighter jets, seen here in a video published Saturday by the Russian Defense Ministry, began flights to Ukraine's neighbor Belarus, where Belarusian officials say they're hosting combat readiness drills.
So far with this administration, we have seen a doctrine of appeasement, and that certainly is not going to deter President Putin and Russia from invading Ukraine. So let's make sure that we are pushing back right now with stiff sanctions, making sure that we are showing Putin we do mean business.
So far, the main sticking point in negotiations between the West and Russia is the Kremlin's insistence that Ukraine never be given entry to NATO, a non-starter for the U.S. Arash Arabasadi, VOA News.
In Israel's Galilee, a group of Arab and Jewish women work together to produce and market fair trade olive oil. They say they're working to create change from the ground up, with all profits going to support education and economic opportunities for Arab women. Linda Grantstein and Ricky Rosen report from Kfar Kana.
Instead of the extra virgin label, Cindiana olive oils are labeled extra peaceful, extra unified, and extra hopeful. They reflect the mission of Cindiana, a non-profit group in Israel's Galilee to foster collaboration between Jewish and Arab women through the joint production of olive oil and related products.
Cindiana was kind of startup. We thought how women, Jewish women and Arab women, could collaborate in order to build something that will be sustainable, will be profitable, will be economically justified, and they support the people that will be involved in this project.
Cindiana is one of just a few certified fair trade olive oil producers in Israel. This means it is committed to fair pay for about 200 Arab olive farmers and the Arab women on the production line, thereby supporting the economically disadvantaged Israeli Arab community.
It is sometimes hard for Arab women to find jobs that are appropriate for them, and so I'm glad to be working here. Also, it's sometimes hard for women to work if they have to take care of the house and the children, but it is important for women to work. I didn't go to university, but I want all of my children to go.
Although both the Jewish and Arab women are citizens of Israel, they lead separate lives. Cindiana gives them a chance to meet as they work together, as well as study in Hebrew classes and workshops for traditional crafts. They also get together for the olive harvest in Cindiana's organic groves in the Galilee.
The main thing was to make bridges, to build bridges, to make connections between people from different communities that usually on the daily life they don't meet. At least they don't meet like equal people.
Jewish Israelis are also exposed to Arab culinary culture through Sindiana's workshops for making za'atar, a combination of wild oregano and olive oil. International tourists used to attend these workshops and buy Sindiana products, but the COVID-19 pandemic has prevented most of them from visiting Israel. Sindiana is the Arabic name for a tree renowned in local culture for its rootedness to the land. The women of this collective hope to use their extra peaceful olive oil to encourage coexistence on this shared land. Linda Gradstein for VOA News, Kfar Khana.
A shortage of truck drivers in the U.S. is leading to major trouble for consumers and businesses. That has led to some trucking companies doing all they can to get new drivers on the road. VOA's Auntman Apti has more from New York City.
Karina De Jesus is practicing how to reverse park a tractor trailer, also known as a truck, on a quiet street corner in Bronx, New York. She is a school bus driver who aspires to be a truck driver. To learn the parking technique, she enrolled in New York Commercial Driving School.
I don't see this as a challenge. I think the same way the men can do it, women can do it. I think it's equality is the most important thing right now. I know as a mom, probably it's a little bit hard for me, but I'm not planning to go to different states. I'm planning to do local most of the work.
According to data compiled by the American Trucking Association, there were approximately 167,000 women truck drivers in 2001. That grew to more than 260,000 in 2020. Other minorities, such as African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians, saw their representation rise from roughly 26% in 2001 to 42% in 2020.
Se entiende realmente que es un poco complicado, pero
it is true that it is a bit difficult, but economically speaking, I understand that it is an opportunity to get a better way of life.
According to the group, the industry has had a truck driver shortage for several years and is now short of some 80,000 truck drivers. Trucking companies and other businesses are increasing pay and benefits for newcomers.
Right now, I could probably make $1,000 clean after taxes as a cab driver with my CDL driving a truck. I could probably make $2,000 to $2,500 in a week.
The schools are also benefiting from the surge in driving school enrollments.
Maybe about 50% more. I wouldn't be able to double that. You know, it's steady, but simply because of the propaganda that's out there and the the offers to new drivers, yes, you have a steady increase.
These are really big and really dangerous vehicles, and there is a lot to learn before drivers can get on the road.
Everything from learning how to do a pre-trip inspection, which is going around the vehicle, making sure it's safe before they get out on the road, to performing a brake test, to offset backing, the different types of both parallel and sight-side backing up, to how to alley dock a truck, and of course, going out on the road during all this time and learning how to shift and handle the vehicle on the city streets.
To address the driver shortage, trucking businesses and industry groups are collaborating with policymakers on initiatives like lowering the interstate driving age limit. But getting new drivers on the road isn't just about getting the training.
There are literally hundreds and hundreds of drivers right now waiting for tests. And again, we're keeping our class sizes relative to the size of the state's ability to test them out. So that's a bottleneck in the pipeline for new drivers.
According to industry insiders, the driver shortage will progressively ease as more people join the trucking business. And it will also change the face of the trucking industry, which has been dominated by mostly white male truck drivers for decades. Aushman Apte, VOA News, New York City.
The U.S. Supreme Court decision establishing a woman's right to have an abortion was handed down on January 22, 1973. Now, 49 years later, that landmark ruling is under threat, as is access to abortion in multiple states across America. VOA's Laura Bowman has the latest.
Emboldened anti-abortion activists march on Washington on the eve of the 49th anniversary of the landmark Supreme Court ruling in Roe versus Wade, which established a woman's right to choose an abortion.
Do you believe that the unborn person should have the right to life? If you do, let me hear you say yes.
The White House marked the occasion by calling for improving women's access to abortions during a time of new legal challenges.
This is a moment for us to recommit to strengthening access to critical reproductive health care, defending the constitutional right established by Roe, and protecting the freedom of all people to build their own future.
Psaki referred to the Supreme Court's decision not to intervene in a new Texas law that bans most abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy, even in cases of rape and incest. It also allows private citizens to file a lawsuit against anyone who performs an abortion. The new restrictions come after Republicans complained for years that abortion laws have been too lax.
The U.S., of course, is currently an outlier in the international community. We are ranked right up there with North Korea and China as one of the most permissive countries in the world when it comes to elective abortions.
In fact, abortion is legal in most of Europe and other highly developed countries. In December, the U.S. Supreme Court considered a Mississippi state law that bans most abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy. The restrictions in the Mississippi law defy the Supreme Court's Roe versus Wade ruling that abortion must be permitted up to the point when a fetus becomes viable. So, by defending its law, Mississippi is in effect asking the court to overturn Roe versus Wade.
I think abortion is kind of barbaric. It's an old practice. Abortion has been failing women and families for over 50 years.
On the other side are those who feel that women have the right to end pregnancies without government interference.
It's about politicians controlling women's bodies. It's about politicians taking away the personal decision of people to access the health care that they need.
I've never had an abortion myself, but there is a chance that I might need one day, and this is just about abortion justice and liberating abortion.
In the Mississippi case, abortion opponents are counting on the Supreme Court's 6-3 conservative majority to deliver them a long-sought victory. The Supreme Court will announce its decision this year. Laurel Bowman, VOA News, Washington.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.